In February of 1355, a dispute over a cup of wine escalated into one of the most violent episodes in Oxford's history. What began as a simple tavern quarrel grew into a city-wide riot that left dozens dead and changed the relationship between Oxford scholars and townspeople for centuries. This is the story of the St. Scholastica Day Riot. 14th century Oxford was a city divided between two authorities, the university and the town. The university was under ecclesiastical law while the townspeople answered to the crown's civil authority. The students, many of whom were young men from noble or clerical backgrounds, were often seen as unruly. The townspeople, who provided them with food, lodging, and goods, resented the university's privileges and legal immunity. This dual system created frequent tension. Small quarrels between locals and scholars were common, but they usually ended quickly. In 1355, however, that fragile balance began to fail. Oxford's conflicts between town and gown had existed for decades before 1355. Records show earlier disputes over rent, wages, and jurisdiction. The university's growing influence often clashed with the town's independence. When students broke the law, they were tried by church courts rather than local ones, a fact that angered many townspeople who viewed this as favoritism. By the mid-14th century, the city's population was recovering from the Black Death. Economic hardship, social strain, and competing authorities all contributed to an atmosphere of distrust. On February 10th, 1355, two scholars, Walter D. Springenhouse and Roger D. Chesterfield, entered a tavern near Carfax called the Swindlestock. They ordered wine from the tavern keeper, John Croydon. Accounts differ on what happened next. Some say the scholars complained about the quality of the wine. Others suggest insults were exchanged. In any case, one of the scholars threw the wine in the tavern keeper's face. A fight broke out, and within minutes, the confrontation drew a crowd. What might have remained a brief brawl instead became the spark for a larger conflict. Word of the fight quickly spread through Oxford. Students gathered to defend their fellows. Townspeople assembled in response. The mayor called on local constables to restore order, while the university's chancellor demanded that the town punish those who attacked the scholars. Neither side backed down. By the end of the day, organized groups of armed townsmen and students faced each other in the streets. Oxford, normally a center of study and religion, was on the verge of open violence. As night fell on February 10th, both sides prepared for further fighting. The townspeople feared retaliation from the university's supporters. The scholars feared retribution from the town's militias. Each group called for reinforcements. The stage was set for one of the most destructive civil conflicts in Oxford's history. The following day, the tension would erupt into full-scale violence, and Oxford streets would become a battlefield.